The heated moments inside Toronto City Council chambers late this afternoon.
Shame on you! Shame on all of you!
What are you doing?
Your people are dying on the streets and you can't even ask for the armory! Shame on you!
We will be here.
Shame!
We will come back.
Activists were angry after council voted down a motion to submit a proposal to the Department of National Defence to use the armories at Fort York and Moss Park as temporary shelters for Toronto's homeless. The council did approve new measures, including $10 million in funding to add 400 more shelter spaces.
This is a major investment in the shelter system of Toronto that has not happened in at least a decade.
Lives are definitely at risk. There is no doubt in my mind. We will see deaths this winter, just as we have seen deaths in previous winters.
According to city staff, last night, Toronto's shelters were running at 95% capacity, with 5,382 people using shelter beds.
Well, some other news now. Emotions ran high at City Hall as councilors voted to approve the mayor's request for 400 shelter beds instead of a motion by Councillor Kristen Wong-Tam to open up federal armories for the homeless.
People are dying on the streets and you can't even ask for the armories! Shame on you!
We will be here.
Shame!
We will come back.
Joe, the next time someone dies, when they die, we'll be here! Shame on you and shame on you again! Where's your phone, Tori? Give me your phone. I'll phone. If you don't have the guts to ask, I'll phone. Give me your phone now. You can't do it, can you? Coward.
Okay, CB24's Travis Damraj is at City Hall. And Travis, explain to us what happened here, why these people are so upset.
Well, certainly, you saw a number of homeless advocates that were here, folks that don't want to see as many people on the streets this winter as we saw last winter, and they were upset that council ultimately decided to go with the mayor's plan and not Councillor Wong-Tam's plan. She joins me right now. What were the biggest differences between your plan and the mayor's?
My plan would have it's actually not just my plan, it's a plan that was crafted with the community members, with the people who actually are working in the front lines of shelters. They said that they needed immediate relief. We need to bring in new beds right online as soon as possible, which is why they were pushing so hard to have the armory open. And of course that motion did not prevail. The other thing that was very important is that there was an establishment today by way of staff answering questions of how many real beds do you have, how many are hotel beds, and they have said they have over 1,300 contracts with hotel, motel rooms. Mm-hmm. So the other portion of my motion that did fail was that I was hoping to introduce 1,000 new shelter beds to help relieve the system.
I know on the armory point, the mayor has said that if the research and the folks that his people talked to indicated that the armories would be the best solution, that he would have no problem picking up the phone. Obviously, that did not happen. So what do you say to the mayor saying that was not what his folks told him?
Well, interestingly enough, Adam Vaughan picked up the phone and he said, if you folks want the armory, if the city council wants the armory, all you have to do is ask, and you have to submit a formal request. So therefore, council would have to make the request, and you can submit a proposal. The federal government was willing to sit down and talk to us. That was really clear, made to me, and they gave us an official position from the Minister of National Defence, and they said in that position was that if you need personnel, if you need a special equipment, the federal government was willing to come to the table to either supplement as well as enhance what the local authorities were doing.
Okay. Councillor, appreciate your time on this. I know you got to get back down to council floor. So we did ask the mayor's folks if he would be able to comment on this. We're told that he is not going to. We'll see if we can talk to Councillor Mihevik coming up at 5:30. It's back to you for now, Steph.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Travis.
An emotional outburst in council chambers today following a vote on shelter spaces for the city's homeless.
CB24's Travis Damraj is at City Hall. He joins us live, where there's been a lot of action and some upset people today, Travis.
Yeah, certainly there were some upset people in council chambers when this vote came down. Kristen Wong-Tam wanted to see 1,000 additional beds, and also the armories opened at Moss Park for some of the homeless right now. She said she doesn't want to see a situation which happened last year with some shelters being near or at capacity. Let me just play you a little bit of the reaction when council voted on this motion.
streets and you can't even ask for the armories. Shame on you.
We will be here.
Shame.
We will come back.
Joe, the next time someone does, when they die, we'll be here. Shame on you and shame on you again. Where's your phone, Tori? Give me your phone. I'll phone. If you don't have the guts to ask, I'll phone. Give me your phone now. You can't do it, can you? Coward.
And one of the targets of those upset people was the councillor I'm joined by right now. It's Councillor Joe Mihevc. Your plan and the mayor's plan obviously came out as the one that the city is going to go with. But certainly, as we just played for the audience, a lot of people that were in this chamber that were upset. What's your reaction? What do you want to say to them?
Well, I understand that they are upset because their site, which was the armories, was not chosen. And the reason why it wasn't chosen is because it's a very expensive site. It would have taken all kinds of negotiations with the federal government to get the site, all kinds of transferring of personnel out of the armories, and all the bookings that they had. It was complicated to achieve that site. However, we are looking at city-owned sites that are just as large and just as available and much more easy to get into a condition to make them a respite center. So we think that we actually did one better. It's unfortunate that some people didn't see that, but that's the plan to go forward.
And let me just ask you, 400 versus 1,000.
Well, there are 400 new respite beds. That is immediate. They're kind of mats on the floor. And we're also building that's part of the plan, 300 new shelter beds, but that's going to take a year. It takes about a year to 18 months to get them going. That's an additional $45 million that the city will be spending for new shelter spaces. So we are increasing the size of the system as well. We're spending literally tens of millions of dollars to enhance the system, never before done to this extent in the last 10 years. So I think what we have before us is something, frankly, to be applauded and celebrated. We've worked very hard with a whole bunch of stakeholders to get to where we are, and we think it's a good plan. It's unfortunate that everyone didn't see it, but I think over time we will be shown to really have made an advance on dealing with the shelter and homelessness crisis in Toronto.
Okay, Councillor, appreciate your time. He's got to get back down there because the votes are continuing here. Likely could be a long night, Council. Likely it's going to go till about 8:30 or so tonight. We'll send it back to you for now, Steph.
Okay, Travis, thank you.
The debate over how to shelter the homeless this winter continued today at City Hall. Councillors were not convinced that opening the armories was the answer to overcrowding, despite frontline outreach workers protesting and demanding their opening. Let's go to Ali Chiasson now at City Hall. And Ali, we heard yesterday Mayor John Tory insisting his plan to open 400 spaces in existing shelters was better than opening up the armories, but it wasn't his idea that was passed.
No, it wasn't. This was actually the brainchild of Councillor Joe Mihevc. So the armories will not be opening. In the past, these armories, as you well know, they're vast spaces and they're occupied by the Canadian Armed Forces. They have been used to house the homeless before. And activists have been begging the city to get cots in these armories as soon as possible for this winter. But today, the city voted on Councillor Joe Mihevc's idea here, his motion, and this is them working or adding to what they already have in place. This did not sit well with the activists who are in the stands today.
Shame on you. Shame on all of you. Your people are dying on the streets and you can't even ask for the armories. Shame on you.
We will be here.
Shame.
We will come back.
Joe, the next time someone does, when they die, we'll be here. Shame on you and shame on you again. Where's your phone, Tori? Give me your phone. I'll phone. If you don't have the guts to ask, I'll phone. Give me your phone now. You can't do it, can you? Coward. Why are we angry? I know, I gotta go, but why are we angry? Tell me. 30 years of watching these people die on the streets. 30 years you leave us there and watch them coming to our place.
Shame on you, Joe.
I'm disappointed that it didn't go far enough for some folks, but I think people have to recognize that this is major. This is a major development for the City of Toronto in recognizing that there are deep housing needs out there and people are being pushed to the streets.
So Joe Mihevc recognizes that this is a short-term solution. There will be an audit of all of the shelter spaces in the next few weeks, looking at how much space they do have, and that data will inform future decisions, they say, about opening up more space in the future.
Ali, these are big decisions being made, and with today being the National Day of Remembrance of Action on Violence Against Women, people are paying special attention to what's being done for homeless women.
Absolutely. How the city accommodates women who are displaced is going to be very important. Sometimes they have children with them, and as you can imagine, privacy isn't great in an overcrowded shelter. Today, we heard from a frontline worker a very real story about how women experience homelessness differently.
Sometimes women are staying in coffee shops or 24-hour restaurants. We had a woman who came to us recently. She was beaten by her brother in the night and couldn't stay any longer. So she took her 6-month-old, spent the night and the next day in the Tim Hortons until she was able to connect with us. When we're full, we do everything we can to find a place for her to go to. This is getting more and more difficult. We call each of our sister VAW shelters when usually they're full. We then call the central intake line. We wait 30 to 40 minutes to try and find space in a homeless or a family shelter, and those are full too. Now we have to call Peel region, Halton region, Durham region, and if a woman accepts a space there, then she's removed from her community and her supports.
Of the over 5,000 shelter beds that are offered in the city at this point, just a fraction of them are for women only. In Councillor Joe Mihevic's motion today, there is a priority on expanding women-only beds and making sure more of those come online this winter.